So I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. For those who don't know who I am, my name is Patty Schramm. I'm the Parent Resource Trainer and Coordinator for the SALT Talks. Tonight we are talking about post-high school employment, like what happens after when you're trying to figure out transition, what goes beyond high school. A lot of us as parents are just focused on just getting through the IEPs in high school. How are you preparing for that transition, and what does a plan look like for your child? So we're going to be looking at, we have Brandi here. It's going to be talking about the IEP and just the IEP in general and how to prepare for this transition process. We have Angie here that's going to be speaking about post-secondary. She represents Wright State. And then we'll have Philip joining us from OOD. He's going to talk about the employment part. But we are going to go ahead and get started. We still have waiting on Philip to get here. He'll be signing in here shortly. But we're going to go ahead and get started with let's see, I guess, Brandi, since you're with IEP, you're kind of the first step in the whole process. I think I made you co-host. Let me double check.
Okay.
If you want to share your screen, it's fine.
Give me half a second and I will. Where is this? I love technology.
Yeah. The other thing, while she's pulling up her presentation, the other thing I wanted to touch on was, what happens if your first choice doesn't work? What happens if your son or daughter goes to college and maybe it didn't quite work out? Or maybe they're having difficulty. What happens if they go into the employment world and maybe that job didn't work out? Or maybe they decide they want to go to college. What happens is that first choice doesn't work. We also want to kind of talk about that as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Brandi, and we see your presentation fine.
Okay. All right,
there
great.
We go.
One half a second and I'll be ready. One more second.
All right.
Just got to be able to see it myself now. All right. Anytime. Okay. Are you able to see it okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Sweet. All right. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Brandi Muhammand, and I work as an information specialist with the Ohio Coalition for the Education of Children with Disabilities. If you don't know, I'll just give you some information about the Ohio Coalition. Now, I only have a little bit of time, so if you have any questions at the end, I'll add my email address. So you're welcome to, in the chat, put your question and add your email. I can respond there, or you can just send me an email. Okay, so what I'm going to be sharing is more about the Ohio Coalition and then also our post-secondary transition in building for the future. Does everybody know about the Ohio Coalition? Just yay, nay, maybe so.
I think you want to probably explain what it is, because maybe there's several that may not know.
Okay, no worries. So the Ohio Coalition we're a statewide nonprofit organization that serves families, infants, children, youth with disabilities in Ohio, and professionals who serve them as well. We've been funded since 1984 as the Parent Training and Information Center for the state of Ohio. And so what that means is we help parents become informed and effective representatives through the knowledge of the laws, resources, rights, and responsibilities. And so as information specialist, that's what I do. I help parents to become advocates for their own children so they can be aware of, the different rules and laws that are in place, so they can always have a good, conversation as a team, as part of the team in the organization. Asking everybody, of course, to just put your phone on mute if you're able to. And if you have any questions, once again, we'll get to those after the presentation. Let's go to the next slide. One moment. So post-secondary training, and this is once again building the future. This training is based on the premise that participants agree on the basis of why students with disabilities have fundamental rights to education and all that entails. Their equal opportunity to plan and secure their future is right for all students, including those that are different, delayed, and or have lesser abilities. Everyone has hopes and dreams, just like us as parents. We all have hopes and dreams for our children with disabilities. So there's no difference there. We also hope and dream about the futures, just like everyone else. We need to be there to support those hopes and dreams, laying the foundation for them to achieve their goals in life. As parents and educators, we play a big role, of course, in turning those dreams into reality. And so with the transition process, it's a way to support the students to make sure that they achieve life after graduation. So we'll just go ahead and look at the different transition processes and the roles. I skipped one moment. There we go. And once again, the question is asked, what is transition? So as you see some information as it relates to transition. Also, transition is a service that's coordinated sets of activities for children with disabilities designed to be used within the result-oriented process. The focus is on improving academics and fundamental achievement of the children with disabilities to facilitate the child's movement from school to post-school activities, such as, secondary education, vocational education, integrated employment, continuing adult education, adult services, independent living, and or community participation that is based on the child's individual needs, taking into account the child's strengths, preferences, and of course, their interest. I talked about this results-oriented process. The most important thing is to remember the student. This is what it's all about, the student and his or her future. We need to collect data and information regarding the student, and this can be done through a formal or informal assessment, as is explained further in the training. We need to focus on the student and the outcomes the student wants to see take place. And then we have to come up with a plan for the student, and of course, also the student as well, and help them expect results. Excuse me 1 second. Excuse me, I love allergy season. Next thing we'll talk about is why the student should attend his or her transition meeting. And one big reason is to develop self-determination. And that's sharing their personal disability information and also to ask for help. It addresses how capable you feel about themselves. It's also a developmental process that requires a strong commitment to the plan. Steps including self-actualization, actualizing their potential, creativity, goals, setting capabilities, pride. It goes on from there. And it also informs others of interests and preferences and assists in developing their own IEP and also the transition plan. Assists in developing needs, sharing thoughts, ideas for future goals and plans, and it also discusses areas of need or skill development. In addition to that, having your child in the meeting also helps with expressing fears and any hesitations the child may have. This IEP transition meeting is about the student and their future. It involves the paramount to the success of the plan. It's a wonderful IEP and transition plan can be written, but it doesn't matter if the child is not there or finding value in it. Transitions can also be difficult for parents when their goals for their children is not the same or their dreams are not the same as their child. Many students feel uncomfortable sitting in a room full of adults discussing their life, but most are not familiar with the IEP terminology or process. So it's important to share this information before a meeting. For us as information specialists, we do the same thing. We have a meeting prior to the IEP meeting to help the parents feel comfortable, and also, of course, the student, if they're willing to attend, just a little bit more information and find out what maybe one of the three of the different mountains that they want to climb versus all 10. We have some information about transition age, and that starts at age 14. As you see, there's 4 different layers to transition. We have training, education, independent living skills, and then also competitive employment. And this bill, Senate 316, took effect September 24th, 2012. In Ohio, the newly revised IEP form that's dated July 1st, 2018, that's section 5 in the IEP. It talks about the post-secondary transition. And if you see in the IEP, once again, it's in section 5, it shares the same information we just talked about, and it's relating to training, education, employment, where appropriate, of course, and living independent skills. This section is completed with input from the student as well, because the student, of course, is number one. The assessment indicates the student's needs, their strengths, their preferences, and also their interests. The IEP team will document an age-appropriate transition assessment. So at the age of 14, they have to have the assessment done and transition goal in the transition goal area. And based on the information gathered from the age-appropriate assessments, post-secondary goals are developed in areas of education, training, employment, independent living, once again, if appropriate, but yet still required. And the change is due to House Bill 316 that the IEP team needs to document age-appropriate transitions. So transition starts at the age of 14. Sometimes people can start earlier, but you definitely have to have a transition meeting by the age of 14 for your student. We're going to talk about some of the courses of study, and you can list the courses of study that your child receives throughout the year. Also, the courses of study requirements will be documented in Section 5, that same section for the transition at the age of 14, with measurable post-secondary goals. It's always good to find out what the student wants to do in their life. And of course, so we can find the best course that fits the student. Am I going too fast, or is everybody okay?
I think, does anybody have any questions up to this point? Is everybody okay at this point? I just want to, on the Section 5 you mentioned, that I think that's a very important section in the sense of preparing and planning to make sure you take your time to write that in, or make sure that's all completed.
Yes, very much so. And the nice thing about it, like I read earlier, you can have an informal meeting, prior to the actual IEP meeting with your student. And then you can also, of course, have the formal meeting. Sometimes, like I live in Columbus, and so we have something called, I forgot the organization that fast, but they come, I know comes into the school, and then there's like an assessment that's done online. And then the student it helps the student decide what's the best path for them versus, I have 3 children. And so versus me saying, oh, my 18-year-old, she's going to college for 10,000 years and she's not interested in going to college at all. But because the assessment, she kind of has figured out what's her best path for her. So it's very important. It's definitely vital that the student plays a role in figuring out their life trajectory. So we'll continue on the courses of study. So what's important, as I said, is to find out what the student wants to do in their life. And so what courses of study best fits the student. Some other courses may be needed. So some of the students' goals for life after high school could include college or universities, military. You also have community colleges, internships, apprenticeships, trade or technical schools, on-the-job training programs, also adult and vocational trainings, and I'll add also entrepreneurship. I'm an entrepreneur as well, so I like to always add that one in as an option for parents and students. If the child wants to go to college, then sometimes there may be prep classes for high school to be considered. In Columbus, we also used to offer, prior to COVID, something for juniors and seniors, which they could take classes at the community college, and by the time they graduated, they had their 2-year associate degree. I'm not for sure where you guys are. That might be an option as well.
It looks like there's 2 questions out there if we can take a minute. One is asking the online assessment done. Is that done through OOD? You mentioned an online assessment.
Oh, so this one is done. This was done through I'm gonna look it up and I'm gonna follow up and let you know. But it wasn't through OOD at the time. It was another organization. Oh, it was called I Know I Can. I'm not for sure if they're in your area, but that might be something to consider, or even talking to the counselor. And they did assessments and helped.
And then there's another question. Do you have suggestions for students who do not want to come to or talk at the IEP meeting? Maybe provide input, if any, before the meeting.
Yeah, so definitely. I didn't explain. I actually have three adults and young adult children. Our two younger children are exceptional students. And so for my youngest one, she has SLD, I can't say specific learning disability, but she also, since COVID, has developed some social, emotional challenges. So for her, she wasn't willing to come to IEP meetings. What I did was in advance, I sat down with her and tried to find out what her goals were for her future and then present that to the team. So then they would be aware of what she wanted starting, at age 14, but we really did it more so when she became 16. Of course, it's required for, to have the transition meeting, but for her, she really wasn't ready for it until she was 16. Hopefully that answered the question. All right, now we're moving on to the transition assessment. And as you see, there's different steps and some different questions that can be asked. And once again, it can be a formal or informal meeting. So there's other assessments such as behavioral assessment information, an aptitude test, interest and work value, inventories, intelligence tests, achievements tests, personality. The tests go on and on and on. You also have direct observation, curriculum-based assessments. And some of these can be done, once again, you could talk to the transition coordinator in your school. They may be called something else. Or you could talk to the counselor. They should be able to help advise the student as well. And of course, when you have the IEP meeting, transition coordinator will be the one to come in, or the intervention specialist, whoever's taking care of the transition meeting, they would be the person to pretty much answer the questions or offer some type of assessments for your student. And once again, it's really important to make plans together. You can make plans, as a family. You can make plans just in advance. If your student doesn't want to attend, just making sure that the child has their voice heard, because of course we all know it's their IEP. So starting with future planning in the profile section of the IEP, information related to adult living, working, and learning should be included in this section. So the IEP section 5 should include the student's course of study, such as if they just have general classes or any advanced placement, vocational education, career tech, and how the child's course of study relates to their transition plan. It may be that the student needs more direct or specific courses to pursue for the specific vocational, such as math. They might need, measurement for carpentry and etc. The IEP needs to make sure that any age-appropriate transition assessment information is also included in section 5. Now we're continuing to talk about building the future, and under each area that is addressed in section 5 of the IEP will need to enter a goal. So goals that may be completed after the child graduates from high school. And since these goals are post-secondary, the school district is writing the goals, but they're not responsible to ensure that each goal is completed. However, the district will need to show good faith and effort to provide the student with the courses, the training, the supports and services that should lead his or her to being able to pursue and complete these goals. If the IEP team develops a goal that combines the measurable post-secondary goals such as education and training, employment and independent living, the team should take note of that in other areas in which the goals would have been written but not combined with another goal. As we talk about different goals and interests in underemployment, once again, we have interest inventories that focus on the child's interests and preferences. You can use checklists or questionnaires. Now we have technology, so you can Google or Bing some different interest inventories to help your child assess what's best for them. Career exploration is to determine what interests the child has and what careers they might want to explore. We also there's job shadowing opportunities for children. Sometimes local agencies have job shadowing available, and it doesn't hurt to contact, of course, the employment place to see and just ask, is there job shadowing available? Another good option is for children to volunteer at those places and see how much interest they might have, or if they're interested at all once they start working there. Vocational assessments will evaluate the work-related skills that the child has, and this will assess in matchmaking the child to the appropriate job to consider. But the team still needs to make sure that the focus remains on the child's interest. Right. So if the child says, I want to do carpentry, and they're interested when they've done the data and it shows that they're really good at science, but they're really interested in carpentry, sometimes it's have to go with what the child likes versus what the questionnaire will give as an answer for the child. We have a couple examples for employment, and these are three different individuals. So one, after graduation, Sue will have a job working as a cosmetologist. Second person, after graduation, Tom will have a job working in electronics. And the third one is Ryan. We'll see these names come up again. Ryan will have a full-time job through a supported employment with help from a job coach. And these are all measurable because we know exactly what the student will be doing and by when after graduation. Remember, if you can see it or count it, it's measurable. Still doing good so far, Patty?
Yeah, there is a question out there. Would people contact Ohio Means Jobs to see if there is a resource there for job shadowing?
Yeah, absolutely. I believe they could contact, I don't know all the different places that they can contact, but I would definitely say just try, make a phone call and ask a question for sure. And of course, OOD, as you said before, they also have job coaching as well. So we have different goals, education goals. Once again, we already talked about that list, and there's a variety of different routes that students can take. The last part I wanted to share with you on as it relates to the education goals is assisting with local funding and grants and scholarships, helping with the application process and doing whatever the team can do to help the student be prepared, no matter what the child's chosen future is. It's very important. Another thing to share is the question is, does the student know their rights for accommodations, such as extended time when they're taking an ACT or ACT or ACT, SAT or ACT? And reminder that the student has to be taught self-advocacy skills because remember, the IEP doesn't go to college. So they should be aware of the Section 504. Angie, you're cracking up over there. You good? I love it. I love it. Thanks. I love the energy. Thanks so much. Once again, we talked about the three students. So Sue, as you see, will be attending Buckeye Vocational School, and she'll be doing cosmetology. Tom will be attending the ATT Technical School after graduation in electronics. And then, of course, Ryan will be participating in a variety of tasks to assist in his transition into an adult day program. Almost there, guys. Holding on. Let's see, independent living, as you see some different ideas, suggestion. Of course, self-advocacy, I say, is always number one because the child should learn how to advocate for themselves if possible. And once again, like my youngest daughter, she wasn't really willing to advocate for herself. So I stepped in as the mom, and my late husband at the time, we stepped in as the advocates for our children. So dependent living goals, once again, upon completing high school, Sue will have skills needed to manage her finances, self-employment, and also manage tips and healthcare needs. Tom, as you see, he has increased his self-advocacy and became more aware of his disability. And as you see right there, he's attending a technical school. Last person, Ryan, will learn how to help with direct care staff to assess the variety of vocational, social, recreational exposure, such as material handling, computer exercises, therapy, as well as his leisure time. So once again, for the IEP, it starts at age 14. That's the transition plan, and that's required at the age of 14 for the team to come together and have that transition plan meeting. So once the team has written goals, In each of the required areas of the transition plan, training and education and employment are determined if it's necessary for the child to have a goal in the area of independent living. Some may stay at home, some may not. Then teams need to address the transition services. Transition services are coordinated as activities or strategies designed within a result-oriented process. I know at one point when they asked me on behalf of my daughter, is she going to stay home or is she going to live with somebody else? I said, oh, she's leaving. She's not staying here. Yeah. She is 18. She still lives at home for now. But yeah, at that time I was like, nope, she's leaving. She hasn't left yet, but it was just kind of funny because they asked me on her behalf. I was like, no, this is her plan is to get her own space. So that's the goal at some point in life. We have action plans, and you see some information there as it talks about learning about, once again, the Disabilities Act of 2008, also taking driver's classes, learning to vote, selective services, that's an option for you, and of course, visiting some communities to shop. A little bit more ideas and suggestions, job shadowing, as we talked about, learning about more self-advocacy, time management skills, and exploring insurance needs, and also offering some other services as well, and finding out about financial aid. Who's responsible? The main people that are responsible is the school districts responsible for creating the plan. And of course, as parents, guardians, etc., we are the ones to help kind of push and drive those goals for our students to help them to graduate and be successful adults. Self-advocacy. We're good. Okay. Self-advocacy is very important for the students to have an understanding of their disability and how it would affect them differently in areas of their life. They need to be aware of their strengths and needs. The team needs to make sure that their focus isn't on what the child can't do, but what they can do. All too many times, the teams focus on the negative, but it's best to get the good results, the good positive results for successful results. The child needs to know and understand that they have rights and responsibilities, and understanding them, whether they choose to further their education or start working, or once again, become an entrepreneur. They also may need to learn how to provide documentation regarding their disabilities, as well as what accommodations and supports are needed to help them be successful. This may be needed in an educational setting or also in a workplace environment. All these areas are important, but even more important than the student learning to take control of their own life is for them to speak up and speak out, and to control their own resources that they have and what can be used. Now, once again, this is for all students with disabilities. Some students may not communicate. So then that's when we as parents come in and be their voice for them. Or some may be shy and don't want to talk. Once again, we have options, and so you just got to figure out what works best for you and your child. This is just a general plate. Transfer of rights starts at the age of 18. This conversation is started at the age of 17, because by the time they turn 18, the students have a choice if they want their parents to continue in the educational decisions. And at 18, students get to decide if they want to continue to have an IEP or not while they're in high school. So once again, it's an important conversation about the options available. However, keeping supported decision-making, SDM, at the forefront, which allows individuals with disabilities to make choices about their own lives with the support from the team and people they choose. Individuals with disabilities can choose people that they know and trust to be part of their support team to help with this decision-making. And they can also allow the student to have a say in their guardianship needs to be obtained, as it looks different for individuals, as we just talked about. It's equally important to make sure that you discuss options before the age of majority. Summary of performance. As you see here, this document is usually not recognized by colleges or universities as a documentation for disabilities, but it can be used and help employers understand the goals of students that have that the student has in life after graduation, also some of the accommodations and support that the child or student may need to be successful. We also talk about backwards thinking, and what backwards thinking is thinking for the future in mind. So in order to, like you do, in order to build a house, you got to do it one step at a time. You can't build a house without blueprints and a plan. Same thing with the transition. You got to have a well thought out and appropriate transition plan for the child with disabilities. No one would think about building a house without having all the right people lined up to do their part when it comes, such as the bricklayer, the carpenter, electrician, the plumber. All these people are necessary to achieve results. Same is true with your child's transition plan.
Brandi, there is a question out there, and I'm sure you can implement it wherever you want, but they wanted to ask, would you talk about IEP transition goals that do not have employment or college or career components, maybe related to aiming for day hab or possibly a vocational hab? For some students, day hab will be a stretch goal.
Yes, yes. So that's a good point. Once again, every student's different. So some children or students may just need to be in a day program versus, a full-time work or a full-time job. It just depends on what the need of the student is. So I would definitely suggest reaching out to some community resources such as like OOD, finding out information from there. If you have an SSA, they can also help you determine what's the best route for your student as well. Last but not least, there's some resources that I shared with you earlier. You can screenshot or take a picture of them if you like. And then if you have any questions, I can go back if you need it another moment. If you have any questions, my addition to what we've talked about before, my email is brandym@ocecd.org.
Can you maybe drop that into the chat box?
Once I stop sharing, I sure will. Yep.
And yeah, this PowerPoint, I will have it. There was a link out there I shared earlier. Some of you may not have seen it. Let me just get it here again. There is a link to our SALT Google Drive where we have these presentations from tonight. Let me get a copy of that again. Let me get that in there.
Hey, Patty, can you also add the link for the survey at the end?
Yes, we have. So do you want to explain a little bit about that, or?
Yep. So what we have a post-secondary from the meeting this training that we have today. It's just a quick, maybe 3 to 5 minute questionnaire. We just like to collect the data, answer questions, make sure that you're satisfied with the training because it's free, and so we just have to collect the data. So to ensure it continues to be free, we just ask everybody just fill the evaluation out at the end. Yep. Thank you for your time.
I know one other thing you had mentioned, like self-advocacy. There's many groups, like some within your county board of DD. There's many advocacy groups where individuals meet like once a month. Or I know Warren County has a group, in Montgomery County, Butler County. I know I'm all familiar with those. There's also other more larger groups that have advocacy as well. But if you're interested in that, we can certainly find out more information for you. But again, my son was part of the Butler County advocacy group, and it really made him more confident with the community, and just understand that he does have rights. He can speak, and he can advocate for himself. In rough area, some other areas we'd step in, but he does a lot of it on his own.
Nice. And I was just going to say, last thing, Patty, we also have 2 other trainings, and they're self-advocacy trainings. I could reach out or send the information on whom to speak to, but it's like a training. So I'm here in Putnam County. Well, I'm actually in Findlay, Ohio today for a couple of days, because it's a training called It's My Turn. And so we work with youth in the transition age 14 to 21. And so we help them to become advocates for themselves. So it's a 3-day training that's offered. Then we also offer it in the jails system as well for the young men. And then we also have one called GPS training. It's a little bit more advanced for like 16 than 21, but both are offered in the school setting, and or we work in the ESC as well.
And I think some of those trainings have been offered in Warren County. I think Nancy
Yep.
Crabtree has done that one. And she's like Warren County, I believe. I'm trying to think if Robin Bryant has done them or not, but I know Nancy did, and she was in the Warren County area. So,
Awesome.
so there is definitely that training is available throughout the state. It's not just like the
Yep.
Northwest or Northeast or where it is
Exactly.
throughout. So, I don't know if, let's see, do you have a link to any of that?
I don't. You can just go to the website OCECD.org.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And or they can email me and I can send them. Nancy or Sandy is her name. It's number 2.
Try to type that in.
And so those are in person. I believe at one point when COVID was happening, they did online, but we also do in person. Like I'm here today in Findlay, Ohio. I actually live in Columbus. And so we'll be doing the training tomorrow at the Putnam County ESC.
Okay, very good.
So thank you for your time. I appreciate you. I know it was a lot of talking. I hope you gained some information. Thank you all.
And we had the link there is posted in the chat for her evaluation that was mentioned, if you can take time to do that. So we're going to go, I know Philip from OOD is on here via phone. He had trouble getting on via computer, but we'll go to Wright State. Philip, that is you, the phone number, correct? Oh, yeah, he raised his hand. Okay.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, I am unmuted now. Yes, I am the one on the phone.
Okay.
Thank you for letting me join.
Yeah. So we'll let Angie with Wright State go next, and then Philip, you'll follow, and I'll pull up the flyers that you sent to me, so they'll be able to see that information when we come to you. Okay. All right. Angie, if you want to go ahead.
Can you make it so that I can share my screen, please?
Oh, let's see. Oh, yes. Let me see if that works. For some reason, I had you, and it seems like it dropped off.
Oh, that's because I had to change computers
Oh,
during
okay.
this thing. So like I'm actually in a whole different room than I started.
Okay. All right. I just made you co-host, so you can go ahead and.
Nice.
All right. So bear with me because I am on not my regular computer. So we'll just do our best. Okay.
I'm seeing, I mean, it's coming up.
Yep.
All right, great. Well, welcome everybody. My name is Angie Masten and I work with Wright State's Office of Disability Services. And this presentation is one that we actually made for intervention specialists and then I adjusted for my parent audience. So I've been with the office for a while now. I have, my degrees are from Wright State. I'm a disability specialist. So what that means in practicality is when a student applies for accommodations, I process their application, review their documentation, meet with them, assign their accommodations. I support them while they're here at the university. And then if they need anything on the way out, I can help with that too, like if they're going to do graduate school. I am assigned to COLA, so that's our School of Liberal Arts. So that's our fine arts students, the languages, sociology, psychology, English, things like that. Our Raj signed College of Business, so all of the business degrees. And then I also have our Lake campus, which is up in Salina, Ohio. And so if you are from that way out by St. Mary's, Salina, that might be a location that your student might feel more comfortable because it is a much smaller location. It has a very, very different feel from our Dayton campus. My other jobs in the office are technology and data management, even though my computer decided to give up today. And I have been teaching adjunct courses And then I got my start with Wright Choice out of Columbus with Tykia Wright. So that's a little bit about me. So we're talking today about what happens after high school. Some students are going to need individualized services. So we already mentioned day habs, other things like that. So services that are custom for young people with disabilities or adults with disabilities. Direct employment, I don't have to do any additional training. I can just go out and get a job. Some of our young people might be doing technical training. We have a huge lack of plumbers, electricians, all those trades. So if your young person is interested in trade school, that is a great option for them. But my paycheck comes from the university, so I'm going to talk about college degrees. So our direct employment, we're going to hear from Phil here in a minute. From OOD, but some other things. So AmeriCorps is a wonderful opportunity for young people who just might be looking for a different type of experience. You still get a lot of support as part of an AmeriCorps thing. And then also sometimes the school districts have extended options. So maybe something like that. Our technical training, different types of supports for there as well. Our individualized services, so job development. So look for CARF accredited facilities. If a post-secondary option for students with cognitive disabilities, so thinkcollege.net. Ohio State has the TOPS program, Kent State has a program, UC has a program. So there are a variety of colleges that have programs that are specifically for students with cognitive disabilities that are not going to be able to handle the curriculum as is. So those might be something to check out for your young person. Project Search, I love Project Search. I think that is a great opportunity. Our state voc rehab, and then our community living services. But I'm here to talk about college, so here we are. All right, so our rules that cover our students. In the K-12 setting, we are covered under IDEA, which means that a student has is entitled to success, but that may also include modified curriculum. We do not modify curriculum at the college level, so that is probably one of the biggest things to think about when you're considering, you know, is college the next step for my young person? If your young person had heavily modified curriculum, I would be very, very concerned about sending them into unmodified college curriculum. But that does not require a student to be in a separate classroom. So that least restrictive environment is a really important thing. So make sure that you're always pushing to have your student in their least restrictive environment that's the best fit for them. Section 504, so that provides access to services for students. And this is often used in the high school setting for students who don't need changes to the curriculum itself, but rule changes. So being able to use an elevator at school, having my EpiPen with me, using different types of assistive technology. And then the Americans with Disabilities Act provides access to services and activities to students. So it might be a modification of policies. We'll get into that a little bit when we talk about different types of accommodations at the college level. Accessible facilities, everything post 1990 should be built accessible. Interesting, but it might apply to the K-12 setting if you have parents who have disability related needs. So providing ASL interpreters for parents or wheelchair access for parents who have disabilities when they're working with their young people. So in K-12, you are entitled to success, and that could involve that modified curriculum there. In college, you are entitled to access. So one way that I explain it is if I have a student who is blind, they are taking the same class, they're listening to the same lecture, they're reading the same book, they're taking the same tests, they're doing the same homework, writing the same papers, but how they do those things is going to be very different from their sighted peers. They're going to be using a lot of technology, they're going to be using Braille, they're going to be using a lot of other supports, but the content of the class, they are able to handle. Funding. So we get this a lot. So there is funding for IDEA, but our office gets no funding from the government to provide accommodations. So that's another thing to keep in mind. A lot of times people are like, oh, well, don't you guys just have all this money? No, I don't have all this money. The government mandates that we provide accommodations, but it does not fund accommodations. Whereas in the K-12 setting, you guys are entitled to a lot of funds. So admission. Admission can be based on merit or aptitude. So if a school has an ACT or a SAT guideline, then they are allowed to follow that. Your student can request to have accommodations for the ACT, SAT. So if they are getting accommodations for the rest of their curriculum and they're taking either of those tests, I would really work to get them accommodations for those high stakes exams. If there's an admission exam, then the student could request accommodations for that. It's kind of like how sometimes jobs will have like a little test that you take as part of the application process. People can request accommodations for that part of the process as well. With our math, they can request accommodations for their math placement test and their writing placement test if they need. Now, there are some times that we cannot go around the essential requirements. So for instance, the police academy has a fitness standard and you have to meet the fitness standard in order to be a police officer. So there are sometimes rules that we are not able to adjust with a reasonable accommodation. And then students can be accepted or denied on their merit, not their disability. So some questions to think about, and I'm actually going to send these to you because I have these in like a long list. So all these questions that I put in here, I will send that to you and give that to you. But questions your young person should be thinking about. Is college the right fit for me? Is this campus welcoming for students with disabilities, and in what way? Are there disabled professors on campus? Are other identities that are important to me represented on this campus? Are there cultural and identity centers on campus? Are they accessible to me? So we actually recently added a disability and neurodivergence cultural center. It got its grand opening just this past month. And so it is a space for our students with disabilities to come together as an identity center, whereas my office is a service center. So we proctor tests and we do lots of things. That's an identity center, which is a little bit different. Also, Wright State recently named Tom Webb the Associate Vice President of Accessibility because access at Wright State is very high priority and we want to make sure that we are addressing it as such. Your young person might be interested in faith-based organizations. Wright State is a secular school. That's a good fit for some people. Some people want to go to a religious school. Some people want to be involved with faith organizations on campus. We actually have a wide variety from Christian, Muslim, other non-Western religions. We got lots of options. What percentage of the students have disabilities? We have about just under 10% that are registered with our office. as compared to our total student population. How much experience does Disability Services have with students with my type of disability? So Wright State is very well known for serving students who are wheelchair users, but we cover all the other disabilities as well. So we have a lot of students with autism and mental health conditions and other types of chronic health conditions. If I need tutoring, can Disability Services help me get access to tutoring centers? Wright State actually has a really robust tutoring center, but if a student would need assistance during their appointments or like an ASL interpreter, CPRINT, those things are possible. We are working on early registration for students registered with our office. It is in progress. Okay, so all right, I've decided I'm gonna go to college. Now what do? Well, we have to apply. Do I get an IEP in college? The answer is no. You do not get an IEP in college. Your IEP ends when you graduate high school. And while you will get accommodations under Section 504 of the Rehab Act, your 504 plan does not follow you here either. So students need to register with our office and provide documentation of their disability. So that ETR that they do every 3 years is really important. That's actually the thing that I want to see the most from my incoming students. I want to see their most recent IEP to tell me what the services were that they received, but that ETR tells me why they were receiving those services. And in college, students have to self-identify. So they have to register with our office, and then they have to choose to utilize their accommodations afterwards. Every college is going to have a little bit different application process. So just make sure that your young person is learning what the process is for their school and what they're going to need to provide. Please try and do this. I mean, like best case scenario, before they graduate high school, I would love to have all of their college accommodations set up and ready to go. Sometimes it has to wait till summer. It's not the end of the world. But when I have students, and I still do, I have them applying while they are in classes. We do not give retroactive accommodations. So if your young person needs accommodations in college, please help them to seek those out before college actually begins. What kinds of services are available on the campus? Will there be mental health support? So we have a mental health task force here at the university. We have a counseling center here on our staff, and mental health is something that can really, it's probably one of the things that is the biggest barrier for my students of the disabilities, like, because like I can accommodate your wheelchair related needs and I can give you ASL, but if your mental health is struggling, there's only so much that I can do. So therapy, supports, medication management, all those things are really, really important. Some common accommodations that you'll see at the college level: audio recording classes. We use a service now called Note Taking Express. The students can upload the recordings to the service and then they get typed notes back. Alternative format. So if the class is using a print book, but I have a print related disability, I might use Braille, I might use text to speech. There's a lot of different options. I really strongly encourage using technology as much as you can in high school. My students who came in having known how to use Read and Write which is a text-to-speech software that we have access to at the university. It's a little bit easier for them than the ones that are trying to learn how to use it in real time. Our deaf and hard of hearing support, CPRINT or American Sign Language, and test accommodations. So with the test accommodations, this is usually where we have the biggest change from high school, because we If the teacher is not allowing formula sheets or notes or anything like that, then that is not going to be one of our accommodations. We can do extra time, we can do reduced distraction environment, we can do different kinds of supports, but the student is responsible for understanding that information. I'm going to pause here for any questions. No? Okay. Course attendance accommodations. So this is what I meant when I said modifying policies at the college level. So a lot of times the instructors have a attendance requirement, which is fine, but some of our students, their disabilities affect their ability to be in class. Epilepsy, sickle cell disease, variety of, and this is not an exhaustive list either. And so an attendance accommodation is not an attendance waiver. So like in high school, they can throw you on home instruction. They can pretty much give you like, I mean, they have a lot of leeway on how much you can miss in the K-12 system. Whereas in college, it's going to be very much dependent on what are the essential requirements of the course. So if I have a foreign language class where we are talking to each other during class, I'm going to have a lot less absences available than a lecture-based course. Service animals. I love service animals. They're so great. If you have a young person that needs a service animal, then that's great. We have a service dog park here on campus. They are task trained and highly, they have excellent behavior, okay? And I bring that up because emotional support animals are a different type of animal that could be on campus. They are part of a mental health treatment plan, but they do not go to class with the student. So they stay in the dorm. Cats are great emotional support animals, rabbits, things that are quiet. Dogs are not great emotional support animals because you have to go back and walk them all the time, and sometimes they get lonely and they bark. So I'm a big fan of the quieter animals. I'm also a reptile person, so like snake, little tortoise, all those things would be great. And then our office does also manage the housing related accommodations. So if your student needs accommodations in order to live in housing, that would come through us as well. Wright State does a lot of things that are above and beyond what's required. So we have our embedded OOD counselor, Phil, who's going to talk to you here in a minute. Other workforce development things. We have a RAISE program. So that stands for Raters on the Autism Spectrum Excelling. If you have a young person who is on the spectrum and college is something that they're interested in, they can do a consultation with Heather and Evan who run that program. It does fill up early. It is an add-on, so it's not anything that's required under the ADA. This is like a bonus kind of thing where we work with the students to help them, because a lot of times our young people on the spectrum are great high school students and they just don't know what the rules are here in college. Nobody tells them you don't need a hall pass to go to the bathroom or raise your hand all the time. Like there's just a lot of rules that do not exist in college, but no one tells you that. You just got to figure it out. So the RAISE coaches can be helpful there. We have a personal care program. So if your student needs help getting out of bed, bathing, dressing, toileting, things like that, they can get our personal care attendants through our office. We are not a Medicaid provider. So if your student is on Medicaid and needs Medicaid level or is on those types of waivers, then there are off-campus areas as well. We also have a PA station at the university. So if your student needs assistance using the restroom during the day, they don't have to schedule it. I love telling students that they don't have to schedule going to the bathroom if they need help. They can just show up at our PA station during its open hours and they can get assistance. It has a lift in there and then an adult size changing table and staff. assisted technology support, adapted rec. So we have 4 of these Raider rigs. This is actually our intramurals for adapted rec. The climbing wall can actually do some adapted things on there. Our Wingard Service Dog Park. This is Samantha Lau. She is the student that the service park is named for. Only our service dogs can go in there. And then we have our Obi robotic eating device, which is actually a little robot. And so our students who can't manually pick up their food and bring it to their mouth, it can do it for them. So our keys to success. How do we help our young people achieve these goals here in college? 1, having them understand their own disability accommodations, what's worked for them before and what has not, and why. So we just heard somebody else talk about helping the students understand what their disability is and what their accommodations are. Your student has to accept responsibility for their own success. You can want them to be here all you want. If they don't want to be here, they're not going to do the work. And I have no accommodations for students who just don't want to be here. So they have to put in the effort and try. And it takes a lot of work to be a college student. We have a really big learning curve for some of our students who are coming out of high school with the amount of work that they have to manage here. Good self-advocacy skills are important. Helping your young person make sure that they're taking college prep curriculum. Okay, so I have a lot of students who are very, very behind in math when they get to me, and it can be really difficult because please help your young people get as far as they can in math. That's really important because we don't modify the curriculum here at the college level. Working with your young people on time management skills, keeping track of due dates, managing their work time and all that independently because they are adults. They need to be able to manage themselves independently on campus. Computer skills are huge. Everything the students do is on the computer, so they need some computer skills. And maybe your young person needs some additional support. So Sylvan has some prep programs. Landmark College actually has a variety of programs specifically for students with disabilities, with learning disabilities. Marshall has a program specifically for students on the autism spectrum. So don't tell my bosses, but Wright State might not be the right choice for every single student. So help your student find where that best fit is going to be for them. So some items that you can throw into your IEPs. 9th grade, get them working on time management. It takes a long time to master that skill. Some of us are still working on it 40 years later. But that's something that they can really work on, and also exploring different types of technology supports for their accommodations. Continuing all of the things we're working on 9th grade, adding some things in 10th grade. So applying for our accommodations for the ACT, SAT, because we take those in 11th grade. Looking at the different disability service offices at different colleges, because what I offer and what UD offers and what Sinclair offers are different. Even though we all are providing accommodations for students, how we do it is different. 11th grade, maybe this is the time we start really pushing them to be independent. If we're going to be living on our own, we got to start learning how to live on our own. So can your young person manage their own medications? Are we visiting schools? Things like that. And then in 12th grade, that's when we are actually applying for accommodations and having them be as independent as they can while they still have that safety net of the parents, intervention specialists, all those supports in the K-12 system. All right, that's it for me. Any questions?
Sounds like everybody's quiet.
I don't even know how to stop this. Stop. There we go.
Yeah, you got
Angela.
stop share. There you go. So the last, and not that, I mean, this is a lot of information. I'm fully aware of that for the parents out there and those that will be listening to the recording later. I fully understand it is a lot. We're giving you a good overview of from the IEP, walking you through to college. And now we're going to be looking at employment, and then following employment, we're also, and Philip will probably also touch on this, and as well as anyone else who wants to jump in, what happens if you change your mind? What happens if something doesn't work out? When we change direction? So Philip, do you want me to, I can pull up your information that you sent me?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
if you would, that would be great. I do apologize that I should have planned this a little bit better. I know our agency does not use Zoom, and I assumed that I could work around it to get on my personal account, but it did not work out like I planned. So this is my alternative solution. So please forgive me, and we'll just get started. I'm the vocational counselor that's working at Wright State University. I'm the college to careers counselor that is assigned there, and I work with the Office of Disability Services as well. I've been a counselor for 24 years, and I have previously worked with a lot of transition youth as well as adults in every really facet. I've done a lot of different jobs at OD. To work with employers as well as our participants to help them get employment. That is our main goal, is employment. And that's really the main goal for our college students too, is so that they can get a job after graduating. It would be a better paying job than they would if they were not, more than likely, if they would not have a college degree. I'm there to make sure, well, not make sure, but I'm there to support our students just to make sure that they have what they need that we can provide for them to be successful at college. My role with the college students will be to help kind of guide them to make sure that they are on the right track for employment. We do that by really discussing it. We also can evaluate if they're not really sure what they want to do. I know a lot of students come to college and they're like, well, I'm here at college, but I really don't know why I'm doing this or where I want to go after this. So that's what we got to figure out. And we do have time to do that. We have time to figure out where you want to go, what you want to do. We can do that through a number of either assessments or experiences that we can get them out working with employers, actually getting them employment, whatever it may take to get them that experiences so they can figure out what they want to do. As far as making decisions, our students sometimes just do not know where they want to go, and we just really work with them to just make good decisions for their careers and for the success that they have in college. As far as making sure that they have what they need to, as far as academics go, it's real important. Let's see.
I have your Ohio College to Careers flyer up.
Oh, okay. Let me grab that then.
I had the other one up as you were talking, and I thought maybe this is where. So just let me know when you want me to switch back
I'm
and
just
forth.
going everywhere. I'm just going wherever. Okay, so we do have funding to support our students. We have additional funding, which we typically would not be able to offer some of our students. We support college financially based on need, based on financial need. So if someone were able to, and we base that based on the student aid report. If the student aid report indicates that the family should be supporting, let's say $15,000 towards their students, so their child's college program, we would expect them to pay that first prior to us supporting anything. So at Wright State, that would pretty much cover their tuition So our financial support would not be there, but we also could provide other supports that our agency provides. We now have some additional funding that allows us to support those individuals that have some financial support, financial need, financial responsibilities. So if their expected family contribution is $10,000, schools, $15,000, we can support the $5,000 over the $10,000, but also we would be able to support additional funding for their expected family contribution. We have currently it's the amount of up to $7,000 per semester, which is quite a bit right now. It's not guaranteed. It is a semester by semester funding resource. So it would just be a matter of hopefully it's going to be here next semester. But right now it is, and I assume it will be for next semester as well. As far as like assistive technology, we can identify devices or things that may assist them, an individual, with their academics being successful. I usually discuss what difficulties are you having. Sometimes an individual may have a specific learning disability as far as reading goes. So they don't read well, and they may need the information provided to them in an audible format. So there's technology that can provide that to them in that way. So we may evaluate them to see if these things will be of help. If they are of help and they're willing to use them, we would then incorporate them into the program. As far as seeking employment, we help with internships as far as supporting those. If they need supports to participate in those, we would. As far as also getting those, we would contract someone if needed. Sometimes Wright State has a lot of resources there as well for internships, but if they were in need of additional support, we would provide that. We would contract a what we call a job placement specialist, to work with the individual to prepare them for that interview, for the internship, as well as employment after college. I'm a real advocate for our students getting employment and employment experiences because it's really important for them to have that before they even come to college. We have a lot of supports while they're in college as well. I mean, high school, so they can take advantage of those, even if they're not quite sure what they want to do, or they're not quite sure if they can work. We can take it at their pace. We have summer youth programs that we offer, allows them to make mistakes, allows them to try things out, and they don't have to be completely successful at those things. So, we want to try to help our participants with their employment goals, and we would do that by providing those activities. The internships, as far as being paid, I would advocate for that as well, as to make sure it was a paid internship. Sometimes they're not, but for my purposes, I would want them to be paid. So I would advocate for them to get placed in a paid internship too. And after graduation, as I said, we definitely would help with employment. Depending on where they lived, we would contract a job placement specialist in there.
Uh-oh, did we lose him?
I think we did.
Okay. Andrea Harker, are you still there?
Yes, Patty, I'm still here.
Can you start where he was, just kind of fill in some of the spots, or I can take the slide down?
Well, when I have worked with opportunities for Ohioans with disabilities before, I have not done a lot of work with them in regards to college or attending college. The work that I have done with them has been in high school or maybe as they're exiting high school. Is there a particular question, Patty, that I could speak about? Because I'm not very well versed in some of the things that he is doing specifically in college.
It was just mainly, you know, just looking at the direction of, you know, employment. You can work on, I think, coming out of college employment or just out of school.
Well, I know that OOD, Small for Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities, they offer pre-employment transition services. And there are many providers out there that can provide, there's, I believe, a total of 5 curriculums. There is self-advocacy. I know that Brandi has talked about that. So did Angie. That is offered via OOD per provider. There's also another curriculum called Career Exploration, and you spend a lot of time trying to navigate different careers or employment that somebody would enjoy. Another curriculum is work-based learning and work-based training, where you're doing job shadows and informational interviews. And then the last one, they do also offer a curriculum which is called post-secondary education. So I would encourage anybody out there that is possibly interested in looking at college, you know, that is something to look at, navigating that in that particular piece of curriculum. But OOD does a great job offering those pre-employment transition services to get to that final piece. I do a lot of work with OOD. Looks like Phil is back on.
Okay. Hi, Phil. Andrea was trying to help me fill in the blanks here, so go ahead.
You're welcome, Phil.
No, thank you. Well, just to say this, that we're there to help with the job placement after graduation. I think, you know, one of the things that was asked, and I think Angela and the previous presenter spoke about, as far as what is needed for our college students before they leave high school to get to before they get to college. And I think it's always been talked about as self-advocacy, because the students are now adults, and they will be treated as an adult too. So it's not going to be, I would say, the interaction is going to be face to face. It's going to be person to person. It's not going to be through the parents' interaction and the student being present. So it's going to be real important that they learn those skills, and there are a lot of opportunities to learn that. There's a number of training programs. I think even the school is now offering it as part of the curriculum to teach self-advocacy. So that's really great. We have opportunities as well. We have some self-advocacy training while an individual is in high school. So that is available to our students that are in high school. We offer a lot of employment-related activities as well. Summer youth work experiences, like I would highly recommend that for every student that is in high school that is planning on going to college or even going to work after high school. They should be preparing for that. It's very important. I think every time I send a student to a work training program for the summer, they come back from the summer and they're like, my son's changed, my daughter has changed. They're a different person, because those are the skills that they need to be successful in college and beyond college. So it's important to get the work experience while they're in high school, which makes much more sense than to waiting until they get out of college. Because why are you doing this? Why are you going to college? If you've never worked before, how do you know that this is what I want to do or where I want to do it? You having a work experience, it definitely gives you a different perspective about where I want to go, what I want to do, what I don't like to do. it's very important that they understand that as well. And some of the jobs may not be something they like to do, and that's okay. And there's a learning experience there as well. I would say develop like a social network of students so that they can bounce things off of one another. In college, I'm new to the college to careers counselor position, but I'm getting students that are coming in saying, I'm having difficulty with my classes. I'm having difficulty, get a group of other students and study together. I did that a lot when I was in college, and I learned a lot from my students, my fellow students. I always made sure that I had the smart students in my group so that I would be successful. So I think that that's important to have those type of supports within your own peers. And also, just as Angela and the previous presenter stated, is that the academic coursework should be in the IEP, should be preparing them to go to college if that's their goal. There's sometimes I've seen that's the goal to go to college, and we're saying, yeah, that's what we want to do, but they're not gearing themselves to go to college with the academics that they're taking. Backwards planning, the previous presenter stated that if you're going to take Algebra 2 as senior, you better take your other math courses prior to that to make sure that you have that Algebra 2 or that calculus coursework by the time you're a senior. So that's kind of that's about all I can say about that, but it is important. So
there is a few questions out there.
Yeah,
Bill,
please.
if you can, and I believe these are for
please.
you. It says,
Yes.
do they have to apply semester to semester for this? And I believe, Cheryl, that was for when you first started talking, I think for, was that for services, Cheryl, through OOD? And then
like for our, that financial grant or financial support that we
have. I believe so, yeah.
We do have like requirements for every student that we work with that's going to college. They do have to maintain their grade point average. They do need to maintain a certain level of coursework. We give an extra time for an individual to get through a year of coursework. We give them an extra 6 months. So to get through a 4-year degree, we allow 2 extra years, which is pretty significant. But sometimes based on the person's specific disability, their limitations may prevent them from even doing less. But to answer your question, you would apply for our services. If you're going to college, we're planning for the year. So we need your student aid report. We need your financial aid award from the college. We need your schedule. We need your billing information. We need a number of documents to even support your college program. And the first thing would be to make sure that this is something you want to pursue. You have to be eligible. You have to have a documented disability. We need to identify that you have limitations associated with that, and that if we provide our services to you, that we feel you'll be successfully employed at some point in your life. Through college, we want to get you through college and then pursue that. But we would apply, so you can apply anytime for services. You could start anytime in the college program, but we would plan on the year. You would give us your grades from fall, and then in spring we would decide if everything's good, we're good to go, we'll support your spring program. And I meet with students at least 3 times a year. Probably will be more for me. I will be doing a little more outreach once we get settled in for this year. So.
And then there's another question. How does it work when an individual is receiving services through their local board and exploring the option of going to college? Is this option affected if they are on a waiver or receiving SSI benefits?
Yeah, if they're receiving SSI benefits, I mean, we can, for one, do what's called a benefits analysis. I think the board might be doing that as well, so that you understand how your benefits will be affected when you do go to work. If you're on a waiver, that doesn't affect our program at all. The waiver may be able to support your college program in some way, but it doesn't affect it doesn't affect us at all as far as what we can provide you.
And then it says, so they should start working on natural supports their age. Let's see, on natural supports their age to help them be successful.
I think so. I think it's important. No, I definitely think it's important. I think that's with any vocation, or whether it it's. I think there was a question too about whether what we would do if they weren't successful. If college isn't working out, whether it be you're not able to successfully complete it, or it's just not working out for you, period. We would not, we would still help you with employment. We would still help you determine what kind of occupation you want to pursue and help you with other employment or other, possibly other training. If it's not college related, we can probably support it. So there may be other alternatives to the college program that you could participate to go to work or to train for a job. We would be able to do that.
I've known of 2 cases where, so like a child graduates and they get their first job and they're there a year, they want to change. We reached out to OOD, and of course the county board, they have like employment navigation. Do you want to find another job? And then I've heard of another individual who took the route of left the area, went to college. He tried to go through college his first year, and at the end, he just couldn't. He couldn't finish. So at the end of the year, the parents are trying to figure out what to do. So, reach out to your county board and to OOD, and OOD was able to establish them with a job at that point. A later time.
Yeah, and if they do have a job for a period of time, they want to do something better. They want to get a better job. Or do something different, want to try something different, we would definitely be able to help with that. Typically in the past, we would say, no, you're already working, we can't help you, which doesn't really make sense. So yes, if they want to find a better job, we can help them do that. Now we can.
There is another question. What if an individual has graduated high school a few years ago, but is starting to think about maybe he'd like to explore possible college courses? Is this an option?
I'll take that one.
Yeah, sure is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Angela.
We have lots of non-traditional students at the university. So if someone isn't a traditional straight out of high school freshman, that's okay. And honestly, some of our young people with disabilities need a little more time to grow and mature and just get themselves ready. And that's okay. Like Wright State's not going anywhere. We're still going to be here. So, once we're at the point that we're thinking, okay, do I think that this is for me? I would ask the questions, one, the workload is going to be a lot. Are you prepared for that and to put in the time and effort? Because unlike high school where you're just there all day and most of the things happen during that day, most of our college work is happening outside the classroom, reading, studying, doing papers, things like that. So are they prepared for that and able to manage that? Okay, great. And then, they could certainly, talk to OOD and say, hey, I'm thinking about going to college. I'm looking at these kinds of classes, maybe this kind of degree. If you're really unsure, you can always go to a community college or take 1 or 2 classes. Like, you don't have to jump in and be a full-time student with 15 credit hours or anything like that. Like, I always tell my students, slow and steady wins the race. Like, no one actually cares that you got out in 4 years. They care about what your GPA is, what kind of experience that you gathered while you were there, things like that. They don't care that you finished in 4 years.
Yeah, I would totally agree. And actually, if I know me as a parent, I have a son that has a disability, and it affects him in a number of different ways. Learning is one of them, but also organization. He has very much difficulty putting things in an organizational fashion. It's not his fault. It's just what it is. I would not want him to go to college right away because I know he would not be successful right away. Now, in a couple of years, I think that once he matures a little bit more and is more serious about what he wants to do and as far as work goes, then I would consider that as a possibility. But just me personally, from a personal experience, he may not be ready right now, and it's okay. You don't have to get through in 4 years, like Angela said. It's not that important. But what's important is that you're successful.
Thank you. Thank you there, Phil. Just wanted to, wrap things up here in a few minutes if anybody doesn't have any other questions. But I think it's just important to know that you have those who receive DD services, which most of us do, but go back to them if you run into some bumps on the road, or work with the SSA. Go back to OOD. If you've never opened a case, your SSA, your county board can help you with that. In a sense of getting you all connected. So with any like bumps in the road or changes in the road, I would go back to my county board or to OOD. One thing I wanted to make mention of, and see Angie's on it, I'm not sure she knows her, but Allison Boot will be here next week. She's talking to us on October 3rd. I think from your face, I think you recognize. She is going to kick off our independent living session. And she's also, I see where she did an undergraduate with Wright State. So
yeah, that's great. And I believe she is the current reigning Ms. Wheelchair Ohio.
Mm-hmm. So she'll be speaking with us next week on October 3rd. It's a hybrid session. It's going to be virtual, but we're also going to have an in-person, and you can just reach out to me if you need the information, but it's there in Facebook. We have it there, and I can send you the information as well. If you haven't signed up for a newsletter, we have it in there. We'll be having it in there. We'll be sending it out this weekend. So, but I want to thank everybody that attended tonight. I know some had to leave at 7:30, but thank you, speakers. Is there any last anything else you want to add before we close the session?
I'll say, if your young person is thinking about college, you can call our office and schedule a consultation appointment where we just kind of talk about what it might look like for your young person, things like that. They can come down, do a tour. We don't have to make any decisions like in the moment.
Brandi, do you have anything other? Oh, go ahead, Phil.
Mm-hmm.
Philip.
No, it's okay. If anybody wanted to reach out to me also and ask questions, that's fine too.
Yeah, and I can, if you have any specific, for those who are listening after this session, because I am recording it, whether you have any questions, you can reach out to me for their email. If you have any direct questions to any of the speakers, I can give you that information as well. And Brandi, was there anything else you wanted to add?
I just want to say thanks again, Patty, in particular, for the opportunity to speak to your audience. Thanks again for the information that I learned here today as well. I really appreciate it. It's always good to learn something new. So thanks for your time, everybody. Thanks in particular, Patty.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for attending. And again, thank you three, for Philip and Angie and Brandi, for, doing this discussion, because this is one that is a big question for many of us parents, is how do you prepare for it? What if I want to go to college, or what if I want to go to employment? And then what happens if it doesn't work out? It's like, we might change directions several times,
And that's allowed.
Our kids are growing, they're maturing at their own rate, right? So what for ours, our son might have thought at college or at high school, graduation, 5 years, 10 years down the road, it might be a totally different direction. It's hard to say, but we want to know what our options are and who to go to. So, well, thank you, everybody. And I appreciate everybody that attended tonight. And again, October 3rd, we'll hear from Allison Boot. She is independent. She's going to kick off our independent living series, talk about going to school, talk about living on our own, talk about how it is just being on our own. And that will be next Tuesday on October. Hard to believe it's October 3rd. So, but thank you again.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.